guys, we're back again. This time we're off to Abbots Bromley Living History Festival. We're going to have things like Vikings reenacting there. We're going to have a Napoleonic, I suppose, Battle of Waterloo sort of thing. We'll have Wild West, yeah. Xander's ready with his hat, aren't you, Xander, for that one? I don't know what else.
We don't really know till we go there, do we?
Yeah. We don't really know what else is there till we get there, yeah. But hopefully it'll be a fun day. Weather is overcast but dry, so that's good. And we'll see you there. In today's video, it's all about the Alamo, the Texans, Mexicans, and even Davy Crockett. Yes.
We're a biker company. We're volunteers. We're American Texans.
Right.
So we're just general public that have moved in as farmers and ex-trappers and all that sort of thing. We've moved to Texas to get some land and start farming. And then the Mexicans tried to kick us out.
Yes.
So then there was the Texas Revolution.
Right.
So we're just helping out. We're not professional army.
You're just fighting to protect your land.
Yeah, we're just trying to keep the land.
Yeah.
And they're Mexicans that live in Texas but don't want to be a part of Mexico.
That's confusing. Hold on. So those are Mexicans. Mexican Texans.
Yeah.
And you're
Texicans. American Texans.
How confusing.
There were lots of people involved.
Yes, yes.
For all different walks of life.
So how long did that go on for?
2 years. The fighting was.
Yeah.
Didn't really start at the Alamo. There was already a bit of tension. And then we're sort of portraying from the Alamo after.
Right.
Santa Ana. Santa Ana's army's over there.
Right.
They're the Mexican army.
It's a whole period of history I know really nothing about, so it's really quite fascinating.
They're fully trained troops. They're a professional army, whereas we're not.
You're not. No. So I mean, did a lot of you die, I suppose?
Yes. Quite high casualties.
Yes.
You've heard of the Alamo. They killed everyone. They took no prisoners. Yeah. Then there was another fort got taken just after, and then General Houston kept the Texan army moving, just kept running away until he was ready to fight.
Right.
And then that's when it changed, and there was all little skirmishes, but there was the big battle at San Jacinto, and that's the one where it turned and the Texans sort of routed the Mexicans.
Right.
But the Texan army was waiting for their moment to do it right.
Yes.
How they wanted to do it, so they knew they could win. Because it's a small force of untrained troops that don't really know what they're doing.
No, yeah.
Up against a professional army.
Right. So is this your little encampment here?
This is Trevor's.
Right.
He lives in there. That's his.
Is this how they would have sort of been?
Yeah, this is a lot of people would just have the wedge tents.
Just have it, yeah.
But then some people have had in a longer encampment when they were there for a few days or a week, couple of weeks or something like that. They're set up a bit more homely like this.
So is this like an original sort of cookie?
It's a similar sort of setup.
Yeah.
There would have been things like this.
Yes.
The cooker on the top.
Yeah.
That's a Napoleonic period cooker.
Yeah.
But the potbelly stove underneath, that's something that would have been carried around on the wagons. Yeah. And then as they turned up to camp, they get it set up like this.
Yeah.
Because this would be like a rear camp, whereas this should be more of a forward camp.
It gives off some heat.
Oh yeah. Because I don't think the belly stove's actually lit, it's just the top stove.
No, just the top one, that one gives off some heat, yeah.
Other than the plastic bags in there, it's all period sort of equipment, rough knocked up tables and with what you got lying around.
So what happened sort of after the war then? I mean, was there many left? Or?
Yeah, Texas became a country, first it was the Republic of Texas, and then they joined the American Union, the United States, a few years later, and become a state.
Yes.
But it was sort of in limbo as its own entity for a few years after the War of Independence.
Right.
But you can always come and join in. We can dress you up.
Thank you very much. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information about what I'm portraying here.
Yeah, I was
It's
going to say.
not common knowledge, so I just like to put the information there.
Yeah, I'll do that. So I was just talking to that gentleman there, and he was sort of trying to explain to me about, you know, the Texan side, the Mexican side,
Yeah.
and the Mexicans want to be Texans, or
Yeah.
So it got slightly confusing.
Yeah.
So
So I'm going to confuse you even more now. We're actually Spanish settlers. We're immigrants that were there at the time, you know, but not new. We'd been settled there for a long time, you know.
Yes.
Essentially, you guys got dragged into it.
17th century, 18th century, when they started coming over from places like the Canary Islands, you know.
Yes.
And of course they set up, they brought all their horse skills and their ranching skills and things like that, you know, and basically kind of give birth to the cowboy, if you know what I mean. Some of those skills that they've got. And so they brought that with them, you know, and they settled, they made their lives there. And so they were caught up in this whole, you know, because the Mexicans, which owned Texas at the time, they didn't really like it.
No, understandable.
And so they were kind of fighting to push everybody out of what they were. You know, this is Mexico.
This is our land, I suppose.
Absolutely. And so that's why the Tejanos sort of ended up fighting on the side of the Texian and the Americans, you know. But they were really useful to them because they knew the lay of the land, they knew everything about it, they were the best horsemen, you know, and if they needed spotters to go out and say there's an army coming, you know, they sent out the Tejanos on their horses because they were the quickest, you know, so they were really helpful to the operations, but they're not really documented, you know. When you hear, you sort of hear the names Bowie, Travis, Crockett, you know, all those big names, and then if you say Juan Seguin, you know, and people go, who?
Who?
So this is what we're doing, trying to, you know, push that side of the story across as well, because it's just as important.
Well, let me just have a look over here with what you've
have a look.
What you've got. Oh, stop it! I know I haven't got my glasses, so I can't see again. So hopefully everybody will be able to read some of this, or you can stop the video at any time just to have a read.
Stiff one looks like.
So you are Mexicans then?
Dr. Arroyo surgeon second class.
Right, so you're the surgeon to do some amputations and save some lives and
amputation, bullet extraction, head injuries, even treatment of constipation.
Really? Really?
Yeah. It's called a stool breaker and you wouldn't want to know.
No, I really wouldn't want, well I can guess, I really wouldn't want to know about that.
Yes.
So how many men would you treat in a day, I suppose?
Basically as many as I've got to.
So we're talking lots though, I assume.
It could be quite a lot. At the Alamo, the Mexican army turned up without surgical train. There was one surgeon in the town who'd been left from a skirmish the previous autumn to look after some wounded, and I think he did about 120 surgical procedures over 2 days.
Wow.
And he didn't have anything like enough surgical dressings.
I mean, did they not, I mean, assuming, did they have any kind of anaesthetic?
Nope.
Nope.
No, there had been an anaesthetic in medieval times called Dwale. It's oral, which means that once it goes in, till it goes out the other end, the patient is still out cold. So if they're overdosed, they don't come round. So hardly any surgeons would ever use it, and they would never actually give it to the patient. They'd put it on the side and tell him about it, and then it's up to the patient whether they risk it. It's normally only ever used in England for the really painful operations, like having your piles sutured. Sorry, it's true. I mean, ideally you want to operate on a patient, well, they call it a hot wound operation, while they're still in the initial trauma.
Right, yes.
So you're not adding much to it. With amputation, most of the pain with amputation comes in the next 6 weeks.
Right.
When you the phantom toes
yes.
syndrome. Trepanning, no pain.
Right, yeah.
Because you haven't got any nerves in your skull.
Have you not? I never thought about that.
No. Oh, dead easy. You don't need any surgical experience to be taught to how to do a trepan successfully. Very good operation, very successful operation.
What are these ones for?
Right, these are for bullet wounds.
Oh right. Okay.
Basically, the bullet's gone in. Now you check to see if it has come out the other side. If it is, that's good. But you've still got clothing gone in.
Yes.
That spreads infection, so that's all got to come out. So let's assume there's no exit wound. So we look for the bullet with an instrument called a sound. This is the very latest high-tech sound of the 1830s. The end is not metal, but ceramic.
Right.
If that rubs against a bullet, you get a grey mark. So you know you've actually found, basically you're tapping your way down the wound. Right, having found it, you've got an open spoon.
Yeah.
If that doesn't work, maybe the closed spoon. Oh dear, it's lodged in the thigh muscle.
Yeah.
So we've got to go in,
get it out.
make a slightly bigger opening, double spoon, start wrenching it out. Oh no, this one has got stuck in bone. So this tube goes down.
Yeah.
And then we twirl that end and you see the little screw comes out.
Oh,
Steel screw into a lead bullet, the screw wins. So you get a good grip on it and then out. If you're really unlucky, of course, it's hit a bone and deflected sideways, in which case you ain't going to find it.
Did they then cauterize it afterwards then, I suppose? Or?
No, not using cautery very much at the time. They're using ointments.
Right. So did they just like bandage up the wounds and
dress it and observe it?
Right. I'm assuming that's for like slicing round the skin to cut through bone?
Yeah. That's for you doing your first cut. If you're doing the forearm or the lower leg, you need that one as well to go in between the two bones. That's a tourniquet, i.e. a piece of fabric with a lump in it and a way of tying it off. If you're working on the leg, then that goes over, that's a tourniquet clamp.
Right, okay.
That will stop anything getting down the femoral artery.
What was the survival rate like there? I mean, did a lot of people get infected? I mean,
Yeah, armies were pretty bad for it because no one ever had clean clothing.
no.
If you look a little earlier at what happens at sea, Battle of Trafalgar, the post-operative survival rate in the British fleet was much higher than it was in the French and Spanish fleets, because it was laid down by then that all British Royal Navy sailors will have a clean shirt put by in a bag at all times, and they are not allowed under pain of court-martial to put it on unless directly ordered to.
Oh, right.
So they would change into clean linen for the battle.
Yes.
Navy still does it.
Right.
Something like, I think it's about 6 to 8 times survival rate.
That's
Improvement.
that's impressive, isn't
It's
it? Really?
very impressive.
Just from a simple wearing a clean shirt.
Yes, yeah. You don't want, if you haven't got muck going in, you've got a lot better chance.
Yeah.
That's for bloodletting.
Oh, right.
I mean, classically, with bloodletting, bigger bowl than that.
Yeah.
These cupping glasses, they sit in there and they're nice and wet. They're held over a candle.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to bloodlet where you've got a vein, that's great. If you want to cut bloodlet from the thigh or back of the shoulder blades, you haven't got a vein in there. You've got lots of nice capillaries. So what you do is, this hot cup goes on. You might have half a dozen of them go on. They raise a bruise.
Yes.
You saw the last Olympics, the swimming events.
Yes.
Notice the Chinese swimmers?
Yes.
All those little round bruises, that's how it's done.
Yes. I was going to say, because it's still used as therapy, isn't it, today? Yeah.
There. Then you would, classically, you went in with the lancet crisscross, but you could, from the 16th century on, you might have one of these. This is called an automatic fleet. You'll be very careful with it. That sets the depth of the cut.
Yeah.
That, you see the little blades
right,
come up?
yes. Yes.
And it locks off. That's the trigger.
Right.
Watch carefully, and I bet you don't see them.
No.
If I put a piece of paper over that, you see there'll be 8 little slots.
Oh my
And then
word.
you put a second cup on, and unlike the film The Madness of King George, you do not take lots of blood. With a woman you take 2 ounces, max.
Right.
Man, 3. I mean, I don't
does-
know what
does
a
it
blood donor
actually-
does these days, but it used to be a pint.
Does it actually do anything though? Does it actually?
Well, it reduces the blood pressure locally.
Right.
It was thought it would help drain earlier when they had the theory of humours. You would go to your barber twice a year, spring and autumn, to be cupped from a little vein in the forearm, and it just drops the blood pressure, but it also thought to take off the excess ill humours because the blood carried the other humours around.
Right. Yes.
Whether or not it works, who is to say?
Yeah.
Every now and again it goes right out of fashion, and 100 years later it comes back in.
Yeah.
There are 1 or 2 people in this country in England, or in the UK, who are medical professionals who do cup.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Apparently a great many of the leadership, as it were, that were holed up in the Alamo were Freemasons.
Right.
So yes, they all perished. Well, the women and children were allowed to leave, but then the rest were massacred. That's the way it was arranged. So yes, but that was the price they paid for delaying Generalissimo de Santa Anna enough time for Sam Houston to get his forces arranged for the follow-up battles that went the way of the Texans. But that's just basic history. What are we doing here? We're actually this is another impression we do outside of Napoleonic artillery and American Civil War.
Oh, so you do multi-periods yourselves then, or yeah?
You do, yeah. Most of us. Because that's an American Civil War cannon that was built. We built to a set of engineering drawings, all the components, and it will pass. It's very close to a British Napoleonic cannon, because the Americans copied those to a large extent. The cannons we left in the US, the 6-pounders, after we burnt the White House in 1811. But we modify it slightly for a Napoleonic impression with ammunition boxes on the axle tree there. But yes, it was just nice to be invited to participate with this association.
So your little encampment, is this sort of how the encampment would have been, or is this just your interpretation?
I don't know how much information there is on what the encampments actually look like. I'm sure it was probably rows of these ridge-type tents, and we used bell tents. The British Napoleonic, we used bell tents, kind of partly depending on where you were on the planet, I think, what you could get hold of. Pretty much.
And this is what you'd wear? Well, they would have worn.
Well, this is
that's the official.
As we understand it, the Mexican army was buying up any old uniforms or kit from anywhere that they could get them, so it was a bit of a ragtag. But there's a close resemblance to Napoleonic, because the Mexican whoever it was in charge of Mexico at the time was a big admirer of Napoleon, and this was only what sort of.
How did they not shoot each other then if they were all wearing different sort of uniforms?
Well, I think you'll see that the Americanos or the Tejanos look rather different. They're a little bit more recognisable as American or
regular
Texan
force, shall we say?
Yeah. Whereas we, whilst, as I say, they were getting hold of any uniforms they could. I guess the Mexican army was more reminiscent of a European army of the time, compared to the rather irregular appearance of individuals wearing beaver skins and things like that, or buck skins.
Thank you. You look wonderful, by the way, everybody.
Thank you.
So, you are Mexican?
We're Mexican.
So, are you part of the same as the gentleman over there I was talking to? So, you were fought in the Alamo, that's... Yes. And so, what happened to the ladies in this? So, they were just...
Ladies took part also, there was soldaderos.
Soldaderos, sorry. So they actually fought with the army.
Right.
We'll see some of the ladies.
A lot of them would be married to soldiers.
Yes.
So you went where your husband went, and so a lot of them would have been like camp followers, and they'd have been paid by soldiers to do repair work, sewing, cleaning, washing. They weren't treated especially well, but they were extremely valuable. We couldn't have dealt without them.
Yes.
And then after battles and whatever, they would come on, or even during the battles in a lot of cases, they'd come with us carrying water, acting as medics. Because obviously you didn't have a medical corps in them days. So a lot of the women would have followed their husbands, boyfriends, lovers, people who were just paying for them to look after them, basically. So it was very undervalued, and unfortunately history doesn't mention a lot about them, but they were a very, very important part of it.
Also, women wouldn't have had an income. The man of the house would have had the income.
Yes.
So if the men went to...
I'm glad you got pointing it.
So when the men went to war, if they stayed at home, they'd be ransacked, or they had no means of income, so they went with the army, no means of support, so they went with the army, and also fought and shot guns.
Really?
Moving on another 30 years, this is 1836, moving on to the American Civil War, women didn't fight as women. They had to disguise themselves as men, and although 400 women fought in the American Civil War, they had to pretend that they were men. But the same thing happened. You had women that had no means of income, so they had to go along with the camp. In the American Civil War, they did have family camps where the women would do natural born carers.
Yes.
So they would be there to cook, do the washing, look
Provide
after sometimes the
services.
kids, provide services.
That's why I'm married.
That's a polite way of putting it.
Well, the term hooker, you know, the term
Yes.
hooker came from the American Civil War, which is 30 years on from this period.
Right.
Because General Hooker felt that it was appropriate to entertain the troops for horizontal refreshment. However,
We totally agree with
Horizontal
that.
refreshment.
however, the women had to have a certificate of cleanliness from the surgeon and have a certificate issued from the provost marshal. If they didn't have a certificate of cleanliness, they went to prison for a month because it made the troops sick. If it made the troops sick, they couldn't fight.
No.
So this is the role. But women fought in the American Civil War, but they disguised themselves as men. So obviously, and did a very good job of it.
That's great.
But it's not particularly heard of.
No,
it
it
wasn't
isn't.
documented
No.
because they were just one of the troops.
Yes.
Very famous. We normally do American Civil War. One very famous lady who fought after the war. Everyone thought that she was an actual man. Continued her life as a man. Got a veteran's pension from the American Civil War. She got knocked down by a horse and cart and ended up in hospital. And they discovered that she was a woman. And they tried to remove her Civil War pension, her veteran pension. And the men she fought with, because she fought like a man, stood up for her and she kept her pension.
Wow.
So, you know,
Yes.
women, there's been power women or pioneer women throughout history, going right back.
You just don't hear of them.
No.
Do you? You don't sort of.
Are you saying women are undervalued?
Yes.
Heaven forbid!
And I often then, and because you men don't understand it, it's because of years of oppression. We've never been allowed to have a free mind.
we don't
Now you've
realise-
given us a free mind, God help
You've
us.
started things now, haven't you?
Part 2 of the Abbots Bromley Living History. We have Napoleonic, Spanish Civil War and the American frontier.